And that finishes off the first round of the 2023 NFL draft. We were live for all 32 selections. So make sure you guys go check out the live stream if you haven't already. But we're going to bring you guys two videos. First, I'm bringing you guys this winners and losers video, and then I'm going to go and do best available for day two. So make sure you do check out both of the videos. But let's get straight into it with my day one winners, and we'll go into Houston first. These are, I know they say 1, 2, 3. It's not super ranked, but Houston to me fantastic. You get two blue chip guys on offensive defensive side of the ball. You get CJ Stroud. Apparently, we knew it was all smoke, and I predicted it that Will Levis was not going to be the second overall selection or even the first overall selection, and he ends up falling out of the first round. They get a great quarterback in CJ Stroud. I think they had success with Deshaun Watson. CJ Stroud is similar to Deshaun Watson. I would say lacks a little bit athletically, lacks a little bit as a quarterback than Deshaun Watson, but similar. And then they go and trade up to the next pick, number 3, and get Will Anderson. And it was so smart because a team that has a ton of draft capital because of that Deshaun Watson move. So they put all their eggs in the basket for the best player in the class and get Will Anderson, their JJ Watt hopeful replacement, a guy who is a production demon. Like, he's a guy who's going to go and get 10 double-digit sacks. So I like the pick there for Houston. I think it made a ton of sense, and I think they got two franchise corner pieces at 2 and 3. Excuse me, I've been talking so much. My mouth is so dry. Then at number 2, we have the Seattle Seahawks. They kind of had the first surprising pick of the draft where they took Devon Witherspoon at Illinois cornerback. My number 1 corner, my favorite prospect in the draft. They're really trying to rebuild that Legion of Boom. So I love that pick. Hard hitter. Reminds me of Cam Chancellor, the way he hits, his aggressiveness, and he'll be 31 like Chancellor was at Seattle. But you look at now, Jamal Adams, Tariq Woolen, and now Devon Witherspoon. I think Devon Witherspoon was put in a perfect situation, and we kind of came to the realization that it was a great pick and a great fit while we were breaking it down on our live show. So I love that pick there. I think it was a great selection. And I think it made a ton of sense when you look at kind of the overall what they needed. So I think it was a very, very good selection for Seattle. And then obviously at 20, they go and get Jackson Smith-Njigba, who a lot of people have as their wide receiver 1. I had him as my wide receiver 5, but I've definitely come around to it. I think he's that perfect slot receiver to replace Tyler Lockett for Seattle. Then we move over to their division rivals, Arizona, who great draft. And this wasn't as much player-wise, but what they did, they traded down twice. They get capital, and they go and get Paris Johnson, the most fluid offensive tackle in this class, for an offense that is very that the West Coast offense that Paris Johnson will thrive in. A guy who's super fluid, really good mover, good first punch, great at the second level. I thought that was just the way they handled the draft and understood the value that the players had and the value that they had at 3 was very, very smart. They got a ton of picks, and especially for a team that was going into the next couple of years without a lot of hope. You go and get some draft picks. So I thought that was great. Philadelphia, I'm a Giants fan. I'm devastated. And we'll get into the losers who didn't take Jalen Carter and let Philadelphia take Jalen Carter, who now have Jalen Carter, Davis, Nakobe Dean. They get Nolan Smith at 30. I mean, this defense is stacked on stacked on stacked. This defense, the backups on the defensive line would be starters on every other team. They have Hassan Reddick backup. They have Jordan Davis, another guy. Like, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis is ridiculous if they're both healthy. So as a Giants fan, I am very, very upset, but Philadelphia played this draft fantastic. I mean, this team will be a contender for the next decade. Like, unless something happens, like, this team is built to the core. They have everything, and it's just not fair that they're able to have that luxury. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But Philadelphia, congrats to you. I mean, you got some, absolute dogs, no pun intended. Atlanta at 5. Look, I think the Bijan pick, I think, is controversial. I'd love to see what the Falcons fans think about it. But again, we had the revelation. We were like, on the draft live stream, we were just thinking about, who are they going to take? Who are they going to take? And we're like, oh yeah, Bijan, the pick that's been mocked the past week. It ended up coming to fruition as Bijan went to the Falcons. But it kind of reminded me of the Travis Etienne situation and James Robinson situation 2 years ago, where the Jaguars randomly took Etienne late in the first round when, James Robinson broke onto the scene as a rookie, got 1,000 yards. And it's the same with Tyler Algier out of Atlanta, like a guy who had 1,000 yards this past year. A guy like I didn't even know that. So you get Bijan, who's like a 3-down back. He's not a kind of Jahmyr Gibbs guy who's going to can kind of share snaps. Like Bijan can share snaps, but he's like a bell cow all down back. So I thought those were some great picks. Let's move on to the losers of the draft. And that we will start with the Chicago Bears, who, look, you go get Darnell Wright, who I love. My offensive tackle one, I think he has a ton of potential. Not taking Jalen Carter to me and letting him fall to the Eagles, especially as an NFC team, to me just makes no sense. And I really just think it's like, why couldn't you have just taken Jalen Carter? He's a generational talent, one of the best defensive tackles we've seen since Quinnen Williams, and since then Aaron Donald. Like, just go and take Jalen Carter and not let him fall to the Eagles. And unfortunately, he did. So that's why. For me, it was not taking Jalen Carter, which I just was super upset about. The Commanders, I love Emmanuel Forbes. I think he's a second-round guy. I don't think you can put all your eggs in a basket on a 6-foot, 166-pound corner. Like, I'm almost bigger than the guy. So to me, it doesn't make a bunch of sense. Ball hawk, great ball skills. I like the pick. I like the player. I think the pick is too early. I think it was similar with Jared Davis, I think 2 years ago out of Kentucky, who they took. So that's kind of my thoughts. And I just didn't love the value for Emmanuel Forbes, a guy who I think they have an early second rounder, I think would have been available there. And especially because Gonzalez was on the board. So I just think that wasn't smart. And I think there would have been much better selections there. And then the Lions, a team who I really thought would have capitalized more having 2 first-round picks. You go get Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, they traded down. They made some good moves. But you go get Jahmyr Gibbs after signing Montgomery. You still have DeAndre Swift. That pick, to me, I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he'll be great. But I don't think he's going to get the opportunities he deserves. Look, like, he's a talented player, and it's nothing against Jahmyr Gibbs. So whenever I don't like a pick, it's either I don't like the fit or I don't like the player. In this case, I like the player. I don't like the fit. I think Jahmyr Gibbs should have went to a team where he would have had a more open option to kind of climb that ladder. But now you have very similar backs. Like, Swift and him are super similar. So I didn't love the pick there. I think it's, I didn't like it. I think you should have got another guy. Jack Campbell, who they drafted out of Iowa. Again, a linebacker class that's just weak. Jack Campbell was a first team All-American, so great player. A guy who I wasn't super well versed on, so maybe I'm wrong. Great tackler, really big linebacker, can blitz. But again, I think a guy who would have been available in the second. So we always see teams reach, and maybe the Lions will be right, and Jack Campbell will be great. And I actually, watching more of his tape, I liked it. But again, I just think they went for one pick they did the double. They went for a pick that didn't fit, and then they went for a pick that was too early. So that was my problem with Detroit. And then Green Bay, you don't get Njigba, and they just seem to be, unable to draft a receiver in the first round, especially now with Jordan Love, who I guess obviously, has Christian Watson. That's about it. You lost Allen Lazard. I think I think a receiving player, like a tight end or receiver, should have been the pick for Green Bay. They didn't go and get one. And they get Lucas Van Ness, who, again, I think is a guy who obviously didn't get the opportunities at Iowa because of his seniority, or because of his lack of seniority, rather. I like him. Again, the Rashawn Gary comparison is ironic, but I didn't love the selection there to Green Bay. And then the Jets, who, look, I love Will McDonald at 15, but again, just doesn't super fit. Like, I don't see where he fits there. A guy who played a lot of interior at Iowa State, but at 6'3", 238, like, he's not a guy who can be effective on the inside. Really, really productive player, though. So I actually think that could pan out for the Jets. That's why I have them kind of lower down on the losers, because I think it's fringe depending on what you think. But I think it's a pick that needs to be sold to Jets fans. I don't think Jets fans are super happy with that pick. So that's kind of where I was with Will McDonald. I really like him. He's my edge 4. I think he was a first round pick, but late. Like, I would have seen him to the Chiefs, maybe to the Eagles in the late 30s, maybe, or in the early 30s, late 20s. But again, I actually really didn't think there were a ton of winners and losers. I don't think there were any like egregious selections. I think they were all pretty fair in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think down below. Go check out our other videos. We'll be posting our best reactions. And then obviously we will be continuing from there. So thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time.